Yeah, thank you, Kun. Good morning, everyone, and Kuzu Zangpola from Bhutan. My name is Kezang Sherab from the Center for Educational Research and Development. I would like to take this opportunity to welcome everyone to this webinar, this very important webinar on mindfulness practice in education. As we begin, I would like to also thank Joe and Michelle for agreeing to speak to us today, share your experiences that you have been practicing and teaching for the last many years. We are organizing this pre-event webinars as a part of the International Society for Teacher Education seminar that we are going to host in June, which is going to be face-to-face. So as a part of this seminar, so this is the third in a series of 4 webinars that we are organizing to give space to our potential participants for the face-to-face seminar to listen to some of the important topics in education, and so that they bring this and we will further discuss, have more opportunity to explore in more depth while we meet face-to-face in June. So for those of our viewers here who are not aware, and I thought I will just let you know that we still have some time if you're interested to come for this face-to-face seminar in June, which will be held exactly from 11th to 16th of June. If you're interested, we can chat later after the webinar. So yeah, of course, my co-host, Dolma, who is based in Hawaii, will make a more detailed introduction of our today's speakers. So with that, I would like to thank you everyone for joining us, and over to you, Dolma.
Kuzambula, aloha from Hawaii. Welcome everyone for joining this special session today. Why it's special, I want to say we're going through a new mood phase, which means we're starting new energy, new conscious, new awareness. And I believe, I trust everyone who's on our webinar is foreseeing a more beautiful earth, more beautiful, peaceful society for our children to live in, for educators to thrive, continue to do this noble work. That's why this conference, this webinars is all to make a contribution, to bring our elders in, bring our beloved teachers, gurus, kumus, to share more wisdom that we needed in this special time. And mindfulness, everyone has heard this word, I think, for a lot. And as today's session is special because we actually have very rare opportunity to meet someone who has over 50 years of mindful practice and teaching experience, unless you're a trained Buddhist student in the Himalayan mountains or somewhere in Eastern culture. And to bring mindfulness into education is a rather new concept in last couple of decades, but we actually are very blessed to have our speakers today who is part of that very early movement to bring mindfulness from the Eastern tradition into the Western education system, research system. So today, actually, session, we're gonna go through a really journey with Dr. Joe and Michelle. And to myself, I see mindfulness is the foundation part of my life. And I want to use a quote in one of their articles and to just give another insights of mindfulness, that mindfulness gives us the access to insights and direct non-conceptual intuitive wisdom that liberates us from the misconcepts regarding to the nature of reality and true nature of ourselves. And if we talk about education, what kind of education we want to offer to our children, what kind of a quality we want our children to cultivate, to have, is they have to have clarity of mind. They have to have discernment of life, and they have to have wisdom to move forward without confusion. And I think our mind is one of the most important space to work in, to dive in the work. So before we start the session, and I do more introduction, we prepared a poll as before, and we want to see how is everyone at, where is everyone at about mindfulness. And so we would quickly spend a minute, and if you can just read in on your screen and to make a choice, and then oh, really? Wow. The ones who has chosen can just submit, click the end poll, and we will see the results. We got a few more friends. Okay, share result. Okay, everyone can see it. What is your professional mindfulness practice look like? Personal mindfulness practice look like? Oh, we have very mindful group today. Regarding your role in teaching mindfulness. Yeah, we have a balanced, experienced group. Thank you, everyone. I think this will give a good foundation for our speakers to start the talk today. Yeah, as we send out reminders and introductions of Dr. Joe and Michelle Levey, and I believe many of you more or less has read their bios, and it's very rare to have such diverse background, taught in many universities, and seriously followed many gurus in the Himalayan mountains and trained themselves whole life and still thriving, learning and teaching every day. They have their own retreat center in Hawaii as well. And they are actively in teaching internationally and locally. And also they have written many books, impact many people's life. So I don't want to waste too much of their time. And I would like to invite both of them to start their wonderful sharing with us. And I hope everyone would enjoy it. Thank you.
Kadenshela and mahalo, Dalmala and Kezangla, and aloha to everyone who's joining us today. We are in Hawaii, and we're so happy that you can be here with us and that you care so deeply about this subject that's so important for us all and for future generations to come. So we'd like to begin by inviting everyone to just begin by becoming present here right now and in each other's presence. Even though we may not be able to see everyone, we can connect from our hearts to this larger circle that is here present now. And just take a moment to arrive to let go of whatever has come before and whatever will come after, and just really be here with mindful awareness of your body, your breath, the environment that you're in, just to really open to this moment with presence.
And as we come into each other's presence here, Domala, are we coming through okay, or is it pixelating a bit? From our side, not so good, yeah? It's good? Okay, great. Rural internet here. As we come into each other's presence, just take a moment to see where you're sitting and look around the room that you're sitting in. To be present of your body sitting in the chair. To notice the colors and shapes around you, the sounds around you. And as you breathe, to bring your awareness into your body. Feel yourself sitting here in your chair. And sense all of us here together, gathered around the world, tuning in together. And take a moment to listen for what's the intention or the motivation that you bring into the circle today. What kinds of questions are alive in your mind, or aspirations are alive in your heart, for what you'd like to leave this time with. And as we take our seat, we come present here together, just also open your heart and mind to remember and sense yourself in the presence of everyone and everything in your life and in your world that supports you in being awake, in opening your heart and opening your mind to see and know the nature of yourself and reality more deeply. And just sense yourself supported, just like your chair supports your body. Just sense your whole being supported by all of the forces of goodness and inspiration and love that are a part of your life. What we'd like to share today is a glimpse of a really vast territory of mindfulness teachings that are a part of our lives and our world at this time. And these teachings have roots in the ancient past. They have profound relevance in our modern times, and certainly are essential for us to be thriving and finding wellness and well-being in the years and ages to come. So we are grateful to be here in your presence.
Thank you, Joel. As we continue to drop in a little deeper here, we'd like to bring in the voices of children right now. And beautiful, it's a short video of some children speaking about their experiences of mindfulness and how that has touched their lives. And we invite you, as you watch this short video, it's called Just Breathe, to not just watch the video, but also be mindfully aware of how you are touched, the thoughts, the feelings, sensations in your body. How does this speak to you? So let's give our attention to this beautiful video together.
I get really mad when my brother hits me a lot. I don't like it when you say you don't want to play with me. When I'm mad, my brain can get a headache and it can start hurting. Your blood keeps pumping because you're like really mad. And you start to get sweaty because you're getting really, really mad. And then when you start getting really mad, you turn red. When your body can't really control yourself, mad just takes over your body. I just get out of control. It's kind of like if you had a jar and then the jar would be your brain and then you put glitter in the jar and that would be how you would feel. If you shook up the jar and the glitter went everywhere, that would be how your mind looks. And it's like spinning around and then you don't have any time to think. And you sometimes punch stuff and people when you don't really mean it. When I get angry, I feel it in my heart. I really don't like when I get angry. The amygdala really reacts, but the prefrontal cortex tries to keep it down. When I feel like I want to, get really angry and yell, I just sometimes, take deep breaths. First you find a place where you can be alone, then you find some way to relax and calm down. When I need to calm down, I take deep breaths. I breathe in through my nose. Sometimes I close my eyes or just take deep breaths. It's calming down, it's not moving. It's slowing down and then it stops. And the heart pumps slow and then it goes into your brain. It's like all the sparkles are at the bottom of your brain. My brain slows down and then I feel more calm and then I'm ready to speak to that person.
Oops.
I get really mad.
Let's take that in
It's calming down, it's not moving. It's slowing down and then it stops. And the heart pumps slow and then it goes into your brain. It's like all the sparkles are at the bottom of your brain. My brain slows down and then I feel more calm and then I'm ready to speak to that person.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. And now, if you'd like, just take a moment in the chat to just type down a word or an image or a phrase of how this video touched you. How did it speak to you? Just briefly, so we can get a sense, a sampling.
You could even put it in the question area if the chat's not open, just to reflect together on how that touched you. Yes.
And for those of us who are finished with that part now, and for everyone actually, just take a moment to imagine how different our world would be if everyone learned these skills as children, these basic skills of how to clear their mind, let their hearts become more at ease, more calm, and be able to relate to each other without having to go into rage.
So we'd like to launch on from here to explore these themes, to consider how important mindfulness is in our lives, our world, our schools, our families, and to explore this together. And begin by just looking at both of your hands and sensing your hands. And imagine now that you can reach out with one hand and hold or touch all the moments of your life that you've lived mindfully, all the moments where your eyes were open and you were seeing, all the moments where you were hearing sounds around you, you were eating and you were tasting food, someone was talking and you were listening, you were walking or driving down the road and you were aware of walking or driving down the road. All those moments of your precious life that you really showed up for wholeheartedly and lived in a mindful, awake, aware, wondrous kind of way. And then in your other hand, imagine that you can reach up and touch or hold all the moments of your life that have gone by unnoticed. All the times your eyes were open and you weren't seeing. All the times that people were speaking to you and you weren't aware of them speaking. All the bites of food, perhaps, that you've eaten that you didn't taste. All the moments when your children were speaking to you and you didn't hear what they had to say. And then imagine putting your hands in a gesture of the relative proportionality between those. The moments of mindfulness that you fully lived, the moments of mindlessness that you can never reclaim. And just pause to appreciate what this tells you, and to feel in this a great sense of the opportunity for what mindfulness can bring to your life as you apply yourself to the discipline of being more wholeheartedly present for more of the precious moments of your life. The research seems to indicate that between 45 and 50% of the moments of the average person's life that we're mindless and unaware of what we're doing. And when we've done this exercise with people over the years, with tens of thousands of people, and we've asked what percentage of the moments of your life have you really lived, the average is honestly just between 5 and 20%. And the question we have for you, is that good enough? Or would you like more? Would you like to look back at from this moment on and go, wow, I really applied myself to the discipline of mindfulness, the discipline of presence and waking up, and more of my life has come alive for me and not been wasted or lost. You could say that mindfulness is a special kind of listening with Bhutan in mind. This is a quote from a very famous and beloved teacher in Bhutan named Dogo Khyentse Rinpoche. He says, the more you listen, the more you will hear. And the more you hear, the more and more deeply you will understand. This is where the value of mindfulness lies. Mindfulness helps us to listen to the whispers in our lives, which, if unattended to, will increase and become screams. Those warning signs that call for our attention, if only we were there to hear them. So we find ourselves in a time as educators, as students, as people living in this world, where there's a great concern, where so many children are feeling this incredible angst at the world in which they're living in, where it's dangerous in some countries to go to school or go shopping at the mall because you don't know what's going to happen and you wonder about the future. When we look at the statistics on this and the research on this, there's a huge mental health crisis, not only for children, but especially for younger people and teenagers, where there's a great presence of depression and anxiety and even attempted suicide, which is especially high amongst teenage girls. 20 to 25% of youth are experiencing depression or anxiety. And many are having trouble sleeping, dealing with aggression and frustration. And the Generation Z, younger people from 15 to 25 years old are especially at risk when you look at the statistics across different age groups. So what if we were to say that there is an alternative to this, that there is a substantially new manner of thinking and attending and a quality of consciousness, a quality of being that could be a remedy for this as we stand at these critical thresholds and create the futures that we want to create. In Dr. To's presentation in the last webinar, second webinar in this series, he shared this slide, which is basically the good news, that mindfulness and awareness-based training really can help us to improve our attention, to regulate our emotions and not be dominated by them, to open our hearts to greater kindfulness and compassion, greater empathy for other beings, to reduce our stress and anxiety. The science is super clear that these practices, these methods really are effective, especially in school settings with children of many different ages. The practices help us to drop our awareness to a deeper level, to open our minds, to open our hearts, to open our wills, and to rest in the quality of being fully present in the moment, knowing what we know, feeling what we feel, sensing what we sense, in order to then gather insight, inspiration that can enrich our lives, that we can embody and bring into the quality of our lives. But that there's this alternative trend, you could say anti-mindfulness or absencing. That's like a social pathology driven a lot by technology and modern lifestyles, where people are not paying attention, they're not being present, they're denying, they're desensitizing themselves, they're pulling away, they're living with self-deceptions, which leads to harming themselves, to harming others, to harming our environment, because we're out of touch and we're not paying attention. You could say these are VUCA times, times characterized by volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. This really describes the nature of the times that we're in, and this is a term that's widely used. And that's partly what's behind what's happened with COVID, the recession, the climate change, biodiversity loss, and the rise of fascism, aggression, and war in our world. So it's in the minds of people, of men, of women, that we need to erect the ramparts of mindfulness and of peace, because minds that are unsettled or distressed or in absencing can create great harm in our world, as we're witnessing in so many different ways. And interestingly, the word VUCA in Zulu means to wake up to what's going on, to see clearly what's going on. And in the mindfulness teachings in the West, there's this wonderful acronym of RAIN, that mindfulness helps us to recognize what's going on, to accept it, not necessarily that we like it, but like to recognize it's a rainy day or it's a sunny day, and we accept that. Mindfulness also has this quality of investigation, this sense of what is this, and a looking deeply into the nature of circumstances that are arising within us and around us. And mindfulness also teaches us that we aren't defined by any of the experiences that arise, that there's this quality of non-identification. These experiences are arising and passing, coming and going in the clear space of our knowing. Mindfulness helps us to show up for the inconvenient truths in our lives that many people lack the courage to face. And while it's much easier maybe to go along with the reassuring lives, if we're not paying attention to the whispers, then we do encounter the difficulties that follow. So it's likely in our lives that the VUCA circumstances, the amounts of change and disruption are going to grow rather than diminish. And, you know, in our roles as educators, if we have the capacity to teach our classes, to teach our students, to teach our families, to teach the people in our organization how to surf these big waves, how to be present with a sense of confidence and capacity rather than overwhelm, then that's really what mindfulness can help us to do. And it can be as simple as this. This is a beautiful, simple diagram that came from University of Wisconsin Medical Center, where they launched a mindfulness program. And it was as simple as this. These posters were all around the medical center: to pause, to become present, and notice what's going on, and then to proceed. And as we proceed, to carry that presence with us. And then a bit later, if we notice that we've gotten lost in our thoughts or distracted, then again we pause. We come back to awareness, back to mindful presence. We establish ourselves in that, and we proceed again. So this notion of mindfulness has emerged like a growing wave over the years. Going back, you can see here the number of research studies that have been done and reviews related to mindfulness. We began our work in this realm right here where there's this red bar. So we've been really fortunate and blessed to take this whole ride. I remember back in the days in the 70s where we didn't really know anybody else who was practicing mindfulness or studying mindfulness. And now, you know, there's so many teachings and so many articles related to this subject. There's a great interest and there's a great need. In a book by our friend Shauna Shapiro, The Art and Science of Mindfulness, she describes three kind of core fundamental elements to it. One aspect of mindfulness is being present, paying attention. The other is that we're paying attention on purpose. There's a quality of intentionality. And we bring to this also an attitude that's curious, open, loving, and accepting awareness. That this kind of like the hydrogen, helium, and lithium of the science of mindfulness, if you will. But to appreciate, you know, mindfulness is not like a plant that you go into the forest and you gather it for medicinal purposes by extracting the essence out of it. Mindfulness is like the whole plant. It has many other different important ingredients to it or alkaloids within it. So to appreciate that mindfulness is one of many, many different kinds of meditation. Many different kinds of mind fitness or mind training. And it's embedded within this whole matrix of ethics and the quality of relationships, our capacity for self-regulation, and embodied practices of awareness that help us build our health and vitality. As our mind and body become harmonized, then we can begin to cultivate the peace and power of our awareness, to be mindfully aware, and then we can apply this mindful attention to gaining greater insight, greater intuitive awareness, analyzing and reasoning more deeply that gives us wisdom. And that wisdom then can help us to be more effective, more kind, more empathic, more creative, which then improves the quality of our relationships and our health. And round this goes. So to appreciate mindfulness is one category, one kind of core practice of mind training that gives life and power to all of these other different kinds of practices of mind training. it's really a foundational variety of that.
It's really interesting to note that this term mindfulness actually has only entered the English lexicon, our vocabulary in English, relatively recently at that end of, kind of on the turn of the century, coming into the 20th century. There was a scholar of early Buddhist texts, his name was Rhys Davids, it's a photo of him, who was a translator and really went in depth into the Pali Canon, early texts. And he encountered the word sati, S-A-T-I, in these texts, and was looking for how to translate that word sati into English and what would be the best word. And he remembered a phrase, a prayer from the Anglican prayer book. He was living in England. And the phrase was, oh, to always be mindful of the needs of others. And he thought, well, that's really a good word, mindful, for sati, because to really, to be mindful means to be aware of not just myself, but to be aware in a caring way of those around us. So he took the word mindful and mindfulness as the translation for sati, and it stuck. But it's really reasonably recent, and I think that's helpful to give Rhys Davids some credit here, because it had right there, it had a relational component from the beginning, how we relate to each other. And it's important also to realize that mindfulness is not just, although it's connected with focus and concentration, mindfulness always has some sort of a wholesome quality to it, a quality of caring and compassion that is part of it. Because one could be very attentive. Let's say a burglar is really focused on noticing who's coming in and out of a building that they're thinking to rob. They could be focused and paying attention, but without this wholesome mind state. And so it wouldn't be called mindfulness. Mindfulness needs to be, it's actually a factor of enlightenment, mindfulness. So there is always a quality of positive energy and wholesomeness to it.
I remember we were at a gathering of mindfulness teachers at one point. We were talking with John Kabat-Zinn and Dan Goleman, Robert Thurman, a number of our friends and colleagues and teachers. And it was a very serious conversation about, did mindfulness get misbranded? You know, should we have called it kindfulness or heartfulness, or is mindfulness really the right word? And it was actually a very beautiful kind of inquiry. This is the one that seems to have stuck here in the West, but you know, there's different ways to view this. This quality of mindful presence is also the key to social attunement. When we're present with other people, we're more likely to then empathically resonate with what's going on for them, and then to respond with a sense of kindfulness, cooperation, mutual supportiveness, and compassionate care. And I'd like to, really speak to just the naturalness of teaching mindfulness to really young children, be it in our families or in preschools, to encourage their curiosity, to encourage the mind that looks at something maybe for the first time with fresh eyes, not knowing its name, trying to experience, what is this? And to encourage young children to, what do you see? Your eyes are open. What do you see? What colors are here? What sounds do you hear? What parts of your body are speaking most vividly to you? And how would you describe those feelings in your body? What are the thoughts and the images in your mind? So to appreciate that we can begin encouraging mindfulness as a natural, innate human capacity in very, very young children without really formal education. I'd like to share a few stories from our work in public schools and private schools. We were invited in to be mentors for the the Meditation and Mindfulness Club at Lakeside High School in the Seattle area where we also live. And we were like the two advisors for this small group of about 15 students interested in learning about mindfulness and meditation. They got so excited about this learning and the value of it that they went to the administrators of the school and said, we want to have a whole day of mindfulness, self-regulation, stress management training for the whole school. Will you let us do that? We'll organize it.
They had actually noticed that they were, their academic performance had improved, they were sleeping better, and just their stress levels having gone down allowed them to be more effective in both in their relationships and in their studies.
So we helped them put together a whole day conference with other people in the community coming in to give different workshops. Here they are in the big auditorium. You know, two of the people from the Sheridan and Lisa here, who were part of the group, you know, explaining why this day was important. We brought in some neurofeedback equipment and biofeedback equipment, hooked the kids up so that they could see their brain waves on the screen and notice how different mind states created different changes in their nervous systems and in their bodies. It's really a magnificent day that the kids themselves, so the students themselves, took the lead on.
And this is another group of students that we've been working with. In this case, we worked with both the faculty and the whole student body. And this is a high school in Tacoma, which is near Seattle. They also came to visit us in Hawaii. And the context for teaching mindfulness here was embedded in a larger context of leadership, of values, of nature. So it was not, as Joel was just speaking, just an extract from the whole, like from a plant, the compound from a plant that might have been extracted, but it was really looked at as an ecosystem. You know, what else is present for mindfulness to really thrive and grow? Yeah, good.
And then there was Mahidol University in Thailand, where we were invited to work with the faculty in the upper right-hand corner here to develop a contemplative educational and transformational learning graduate program. And the vision for that program was that it wasn't like a department off on the side, like an academic department that people would go to and get a degree in, but it was a hub program that people from social work or medicine or education would participate in to get core life skills in being a fully embodied and awake human being that they could then bring into being an architect or a school teacher or a scientist in whatever kind of realm. And that work in Thailand then led us to work with thousands of teachers and students in the various provinces and regions of Thailand. It was really quite a magnificent vision. One thing that we noticed that surprised us in Thailand was mindfulness was taught in, I think, all of the schools there. And oftentimes the form that it took was as mindful movement, that the students would participate like in a sitting Tai Chi or Qigong kind of movement meditation, all moving and breathing, synchronized together in various kinds of ways. It was really quite a very beautiful practice. So let's explore the mindfulverse as it exists in these modern times and to appreciate the diverse array of traditions of practice that there are. The traditional and ancient lineages of mindfulness, that as they're coming into the West, there's four main streams that are influencing the Western modernized view of mindfulness. One comes from the Vietnamese monk Thich Nhat Hanh, which is a kind of Vietnamese Zen. kind of practice. Another is the forest monastery tradition of insight or vipassana meditation that Jack Goldstein, Ajahn Chah, Joseph Goldstein, Jack Kornfield, Ajahn Amaro, and Ajahn Sumedho are some of the main voices in that. Then there's the Vedanta Vipassana stream of teachings. Goenka is the most famous amongst them, and there were 6 other teachers along with him: Ruth Dennison, Robert Hover, John Coleman, who taught in England.
All students of Uba Khin from Myanmar, that was called Burma back then.
Yeah, these deep, deep psychologies and contemplative sciences of how to develop mastery of attention and deep insight and wisdom. And then there's the streams of mindfulness teachings that come out of the Tibetan tradition, especially in the Dzogchen and the Mahamudra traditions, which are so vital and alive in the Bhutanese culture. And then these come into the West, and these have been translated by Dan Siegel at UCLA as the Wheel of Awareness practice, and Otto Scharmer at MIT as presencing. There's MBSR, one of the most widespread of the practices from John Kabat-Zinn that came out of the University of Massachusetts system originally. There's the resource training that Tanya Singer developed at the Max Planck Institute, and acceptance and commitment therapy that incorporates mindfulness, MBCT, DBT, all of these different varieties of kind of modern expressions of the wisdom and the practices of mindfulness. So to appreciate that there's a whole ecosystem, as Michelle mentioned, for mindfulness. And it's not just these practices of self-awareness and executive presence and mastery of attention, but it's these qualities of attention in relationship to being in relatedness to other living beings, being in relationship with the environment, managing our own personal field of relationships and taking responsibility for our impacts in the world. John Kabat-Zinn, in the foreword to the Mindful Nation report, said basically, when we're talking about mindfulness, we're talking about awareness, pure awareness. This is an innate human capacity that's different from thinking, but wholly complementary to it. It's bigger than thinking, because any thought, no matter how momentous or profound, illuminating or destructive, can be held in awareness, and thus looked at and known and understood in a multiplicity of ways that may provide new degrees of insight, fresh perspective for dealing with old problems and emerging challenges, whether individual, societal, or global. Thich Nhat Hanh, the Vietnamese teacher, said, "What's mindfulness? Mindfulness is to be aware of everything we do throughout the day. Mindfulness is like a kind of a light that we shine on all of our thoughts, our feelings, our actions, and our words. Mindfulness is the Buddha, is the awakened mind. Mindfulness is the equivalent of the Holy Spirit, the energy or the presence of God, doing everything in our daily lives in the presence of God is mindfulness." So there's many different ways to view this. In Islam, there's this notion of our mind being fully present. You can find this in all of the world's wisdom traditions. Anam Thubten, a Tibetan teacher, says, "Pure consciousness, mindfulness in its core, is present in each of us right now, and we can become aware of being aware, but we can't practice it or attain it. We can't attain it because it's already present within us. It's not the effect of a cause. It's not the result of our spiritual or mental practice, because it's already present in each of us. Therefore, the only thing you can do is practice being aware of this awareness in each moment." The secular adaptations of mindfulness often snip off many of the really important elements of mindfulness that have created the ecosystem of mindfulness. So that sometimes in the West, mindfulness is taught merely as a technique outside of its ethical foundations or the insights that it gives us on our interrelatedness or interdependencies or quality of wisdom and discernment and kindness that's there within the modern traditions, so that having a deep understanding of both the ancient and the modern versions of mindfulness is really, really helpful. So as we teach and have integrated mindfulness over the years, there's mindfulness, which is a kind of meditation. And in contemporary culture, in many ways, maybe more useful than mindfulness or meditation as words is the notion of mind fitness training. And, we haven't met anybody who will really bounce off of that.
Actually, one of our Tibetan teachers introduced us to that term, saying, developing a mind that's fit for action, for right action, right relationship.
In recent years, more and more universities now are actually offering special programs in contemplative science, which I think is a beautiful bridge discipline that's emerging. I think there's dozens of universities now with contemplative science programs, really bringing together the deep ancient wisdom traditions with modern technology and research. And for us, as we teach and as we share, we oftentimes will bring in biofeedback and cyberphysiology technology to teach people self-regulation based on awareness training. So to just appreciate kind of this larger ecosystem within which mindfulness makes sense. If you're interested in the research and the publications related to mindfulness, the American Mindfulness Research Association, the AMRA, is a really good place to go. Dr. To at the last webinar in this series had this wonderful image of the Happy Schools model. And again, you see mindfulness at the core and self-awareness is a strong foundation. But again, these practices of awareness and mind fitness are embedded within this larger view, this larger ecosystem and view of understanding. We were brought in at one point to Tech Milenio University system in Mexico. I think they had 36 different universities in Mexico, kind of serving, more the middle class population. And they were developing a new educational ecosystem within which mindfulness and well-being were vital aspects, but they weren't quite sure what to do with that. They knew they were important, but how to approach it.
How to integrate.
Yeah. And we came in, we worked with hundreds of their people. I think there were 6 people from each of the different universities who came to a big seminar where we unpacked this. And our YouTube channel, which we'll put the links in during the break, you can see the videos of the teaching we gave to them on how to introduce these methods and practices and perspectives.
And that's at the university level.
Yeah, at the university level. There's the social and emotional learning bundle of approaches that has been widespread in education around the world. And again, you can see that self-awareness and self-management are part of this larger ecosystem in which mindfulness practices make sense. The research from this shows that there's tremendous benefit for students improving academic performance, improving social behaviors, and lowering distress, that the return on the investment is really, really wisely invested. And 93% of the teachers wanted a greater focus on social and emotional learning in the schools. About 90% of the elementary and secondary teachers agreed that promoting social and emotional learning would improve the students' academic achievement. So there's a tremendous amount of work here. The CASEL organization, CASEL.org, is really a great place for that. And then Emory University, over the last 5 years or so, has developed a brilliant program called the C-Learning Program for social, emotional, and ethical learning. And again, you see that there's awareness or mindfulness within this larger ecosystem of self-compassion and self-regulation, compassion for others, interpersonal awareness, ethical and kind of discerning intelligence that they've mapped out. And they are functioning have programs in 130 countries around the world, 700 facilitators around the world, widespread, and they provide free curriculum guides for young children, for elementary, for middle school and high school. So if you go to the clearning.emory.edu website, you can download these curriculum guides, and they've got videos and online training. It's a brilliant way to start a program with minimal budget if you're an interested teacher or school administrator. In the Mindful Nation report that came out back in December of 2014, in Mindful Nation UK, we were advisors on this. The recommendations were to bring mindfulness education into education, healthcare, workplace, and criminal justice on a national level. And then they added to bring it into emergency services, elder care, and politics. And Chris Ruan, who is one of the MPs from Wales, who really initiated this work there. He's a former school teacher. And then the links that we'll paste in at the break, there's a beautiful interview with him. Chris has gone on now to establish the global political network of people in government working to bring mindfulness and these kinds of practices into their work as parliamentarians or Congress people, into government. And they're working now with representatives from over 50 countries, and have convened global summits bringing together people to explore these factors together. So this is a global kind of revolutionary movement. The Mindfulness Initiative that gave rise to the Mindful Nation UK report also has a beautiful paper that you can download. And again, we'll give you the link for that. Implementing Mindfulness in Schools, an evidence-based guide. So welcome to the revolution. If this is new to you, we hope you're getting a bit excited about the possibilities for you as an educator or as a personal new student to explore these domains.
And we'll be taking a mindful bio break in a little while. But before we take a break, we would like to introduce you to one of our dear friends and a young mindfulness teacher who's going to share with you about how to have a mindful snack, in case you want to have a snack during your break.
And this is Amelia, who we met when we were teaching in New Zealand, teaching us about mindful eating.
This is me eating this biscuit. I'm going to show you how to mindful eat. So first you look and feel. It feels all slippery and chocolatey, melty. Yeah, and cold. And then you smell, and it smells minty chocolate strong. And then how you eat it, you just take a little soft bite and taste as you go, so don't chew fast, chew slow. Yeah. As you can see, it's got mint inside, that's why I said minty. So you just keep eating and mindfully until you want to stop. I'm doing mindful, but it's good to keep going, like I said about Brooklyn. Bye!
So never too young to start eating mindfully. And we'll have about a 10-minute bio break, and within that bio break, if you want to come back early, we can take
Yeah, we'll start up with questions, let's say at 10 after the hour. We'll start with a few questions, then we'll share a bit more information, and then we'll continue on from there.
How about, yeah, how about we, before everyone take a bathroom break, or we do the second poll, and just right after your fresh reflection with us, and let's see where is everyone is about.
Thank you, Domala.
You're welcome. Yeah, we encourage everyone try the poll. Action itself is a mindful practice.
Domala, has our video feed stayed pretty stable, or has it been breaking up?
Yeah, the video went through very well.
Great. I'm glad to hear that. Thank you.
All right. So we'll see the result now. How well does your mindfulness practice integrate into your daily life? We have 32% pretty well integrated. Yeah, very well. 25% very well integrated. Yeah, we have a good crowd today. What traditions of mindfulness have you trained? Wow. Yeah, we have some Dharma friends. Actually, a lot of Dharma friends today. This is beautiful reflection together. Thank you, everyone. All right. So, shall we have everyone just come back in 3 minutes?
Yeah, 3 minutes. We'll start with questions, and then maybe at 1:15 we'll go into a bit more information, then more questions after that.
Yeah, we're also encouraging, if you have a lot of questions, you can start typing in the Q&A session. And I think today we have a good size group online. We can also have everyone, if someone just want to ask live, and just just unmute themselves and ask questions. Yeah. All right. See you in 2 minutes.
Okay. So Domala, if there are any questions, we could welcome some. Looks like you're muted still. If you have any questions too.
Yeah, there are two questions in the Q&A.
Kesang, you wanna go read it?
Okay, the first one is, what is the importance of incorporating mindfulness practices in education, and how can it benefit students in their academic performance and overall well-being? So this is Dawadupa from Bhutan. I have seen this question posed here even before we started the presentation. I believe partly it was already answered, but if there's anything more, Joe and Michelle could respond to this.
It's a good question. I think, having the capacity to be aware and to self-regulate and to focus awareness is such essential skills for being a student in school, especially in this day and age where so many students are so distracted by their devices and social media and just the angst of growing up. So that, really being kind of a revolutionary in your class, that really when people are talking to you, that you really listen. When you're playing a sport, you're really there and embodied. When the teacher's teaching, you're really listening and paying attention. When you're reading, your awareness is really on your reading, and you can think clearly. That these are like basic life skills that will have just tremendous benefit in terms of the quality of your life, the quality of your health, and your academic performance. So I think if you compare a group of students who have practiced really well with mindfulness as compared to students who haven't, you'll definitely notice significant differences in that. And as educators, if we can help and encourage our students to be able to study and develop skills in this kind of way, I think that's a tremendous service. And it doesn't have to take a lot of extra time. You just create more loops, like how do you feel after watching that video? What do you notice? What thoughts come to mind? Just pausing frequently and asking students to reflect on their experience is a mindful practice. So,
yeah. We could take one more question before we start up again, if you have another.
Yeah, thank you. So the second one is, so it says, here in Bhutan, there has been random efforts to encourage this wonderful initiative on mindfulness. However, we have not been able to take it in systems approach. Personally, it's something we must explore for all the reasons which evidence are indicating to. Any suggestions on that front of systems approach?
Yeah.
Yeah, that ecosystem approach that we were talking about. Did you have something, Joe?
Yeah, I'd say generally go where there's interest. You'll see this in the guidelines that we'll offer in the next little segment. You can trying to impose mindfulness on a school or a system or on teachers who aren't interested really is probably not going to be very successful. So provide a context in which a school principal or a superintendent or a teacher who's interested is then supported in gaining the learning and the skills and bringing it into their classes or into their schools or into their cities to promote these kinds of programs. We've done, I think, 4 school districts where we've worked with all of the school superintendents and principals in the whole state of Idaho in America, which is a very conservative state. But we worked with all of them, encouraging them for ways they could bring this kind of education to their schools. We've worked with other school districts where all the teachers and all of the administrators and principals have done 1 or 2 or 3 days of training with us, with guidelines and encouragement to take it back into their classrooms if they feel so motivated. So I'd say, you know, just have your mindfulness club, if nothing else, you know, or your network of people. And if it's, don't try to get everybody on board, but find ways to get the funding and the support and the resources for the people who are really interested.
And let it grow organically, naturally, because people will notice the difference in those who are practicing.
Yeah, great question. Thank you.
Thank you. So actually this question comes from a medical doctor. I know him personally, and he's currently looking after a medical school in Thimphu.
Yes.
He has already made a request for 2 of you to give a session sometimes later in the future.
Confidential. Like, yeah, you'll see in some.
That would be great.
Yeah, we would be honored to do that. And we've worked with dozens and dozens of medical centers and medical schools over the years. So beautiful. Well, let's go back into the slides a bit.
Actually, yes, we have another short video to invite you into as we're all coming back. Amelia is still having her break. Okay. Yeah.
So did you click the sound effect?
Oh, no, I didn't. Let me go back and do that.
Yeah.
Thank you for the reminder. Yes,
no
it is clicked. So, okay.
This short video is also from New Zealand, where they have a really very well developed, extensive mindfulness program in the schools. And this video, again, has children speaking about their experiences. It's called Pause, Breathe, Smile, PBS. And tens of thousands, well, let me see, yeah, tens of thousands of students.
Breathe, smile.
Pause, breathe, smile, PBS. Tens of thousands of students have been touched by this work in New Zealand. Okay. Oh, and as you're watching, again, please be mindful of what you're experiencing as you're watching, is how it's touching you. Ooh. And back we go.
Mindfulness helps you keep calm and relaxed when you're in times when you're angry or frustrated. You learn from mindfulness so you can help yourself calm down. The red zone is when you're tense. My heart starts to beat fast, and then I scrunch up my fist and over my face. Your blood might be swishing around like a big wave coming over the ocean. You can walk away, tell the teacher, or pause, breathe, and smile. PBS. PBS stands for pause, breathe, and smile. Everything's moving the way it's supposed to be. Your heart's at a good rate. When you smile and just be happy, it's where you're happy, you're never nervous, and you'll make friends. You kind of just like smell and like feel what it's like, and then you just like look at it and then you eat it.
Mandarin juice. Mindfulness makes me a better friend and sister. Before I didn't notice if people were feeling sad or lonely, but after I learned mindfulness, I noticed and I wanted to help.
Sometimes my brain is like a snow globe when you shake it up. It's stormy and wild, and I can't see things properly. Mindfulness helps me to calm down so I can see all the different snowflakes and understand what's happening in my mind.
Sometimes I lie in bed and I can't go to sleep because I'm worried about not getting high scores on my test. Pause, breathe and smile will make me feel a lot calmer, and it will just help me fall asleep.
There's lots of little neurons in your brain, and your heart is actually connected to your brain. When you feel happy, you have a happy heart. Mindfulness gives you that happy heart.
And we were really inspired by the popularity and the integration of mindfulness education in New Zealand where we were there. It was fantastic.
Hopefully you have a happy heart just having watched that short video.
Yes.
And seeing these children learning an alternative way of responding to challenging situations. So I love that they can just tell the teacher, that's part of the systems approach, that they can tell the teacher, I need to do a PBS now. And the teachers understand, you know, it's woven into the culture in the schools.
So one way to understand some of the science around mindfulness is that this is about making the mind more coherent, training the nervous system to work in a more coherent way, which then makes the brain more hyper-connected and allows energy and information to flow throughout the nervous system in a more integrated fashion. And this gives us greater mental and psychophysical capacity to be empathic and attuned in the field of our relationships. That these are interrelated aspects as articulated by Dan Siegel in his brilliant work on interpersonal neurobiology. And Dan's writings about mindfulness in education and mindfulness with children are some of the absolutely best writings. If you were to read no other authors, to just gain an understanding of this field and how to bring this into healthcare and into education for children. It's brilliant. I'd like to also take a moment to honor the work that Tanya Singer has done at Max Planck Institute, where they've looked at different kinds of meditation that cultivate the quality of mindful presence, heart-opening, emotionally intelligent, affective intelligence, and a deeper insight and wisdom with regards to the nature of what's going on within us and the world around us, and have shown that each of these different domains of mind training that complement and include mindfulness, each of these is lighting up and relying upon different parts of the brain. So that as we train in these different mental practices, we're also developing neural connectivity in different parts of the brain. There's a brilliant study, this is from the Proceedings from National Academy of Science, probably about 15 years ago now. They compared a group of long-term virtuoso level meditators who've been meditating for tens of thousands of hours, 40,000, 50,000, 60,000 hours of practice, with a group of controls who had just been training their mind for a week. And you can see this is a kind of a topographical map of the power spectrum of neural activity in the brain. The control subjects who were relatively naive and new to mind training had some changes over the course of a week, but nothing compared to the quality of impact and the mental and the neurological power that was exhibited by the long-term meditators. So as we train our minds, we are literally changing our brains. and enhancing the capacity of the brain to work at much higher levels of capacity and self-awareness. And this is sort of how it works, that we have life experiences, and those life experiences shape our values, our belief, our worldview and identity, which then determine what we care about, what we value. And those values will determine our choices and how we live our lives and what our priorities are and what we invest our attention in. And depending on what we pay attention to and care about, then that activates the neural circuits associated with what we're paying attention to and we care about. And that establishes like certain set points and filters in how the nervous system works, which then again influence how we see our lives and what our beliefs are and what we value and choose. And this is sort of how it works for the mind to be shaping the brain. What the research shows is that for people who have trained in mindfulness techniques, that the executive functions that are like the higher order capacities of the nervous system are much more available and stronger and online for people who grew up in families where they felt safe and secure and had good attachment, and for people who've trained in mindfulness and various kinds of mind training practices, that they're better able to tune into and to regulate their bodies, to self-regulate. Their capacity for empathic resonance and attuned communication is greater. They're more emotionally balanced. They have a greater capacity for ethical and moral discernment. They're more able to move into situations that might elicit anxiety or fear with a sense of curiosity and skillfulness, where that anxiety and fear doesn't dominate their lives, and they have access to a deeper quality of intuitive wisdom,
which leads to insight.
Yeah, so if you could go to your school district or the parents of the children you teach and say, how would you like to have more of this? You know, who wouldn't want more of this in their lives or in the lives of their children? And we certainly need this given the complexity of the world that we're going into. So that in this way, we can really appreciate how as we train our minds, we're literally changing the function and the structure of our brains. One other practice that arises, and it's very much a part of the milieu of mindfulness training, is that as we gain a deeper insight into ourselves, what we're feeling, what we're desiring, what our needs are, then it's more likely that as we look at other people, we'll go, oh, just like me, she wants to be happy. And just like me, this person wants to be healthy and have a sense of well-being or safety or be at ease or free from suffering and anxiety. So that one of the natural developments of developing greater self-awareness is a greater sense of empathic attunement and resonance with other beings, and a greater capacity for genuine sense of loving kindness and compassion in relating to other beings who, just like me, want to not be overwhelmed by the circumstances of their lives and be peaceful and be well. We bring this even into corporate audiences as a practice. So we'd like to offer some guidelines here. If you're interested in mindfulness, you'd like to bring this into your work as an educator in whatever domain you might be in, here's some guidelines that we can share. Invite and encourage engagement and participation, but don't impose this training on people. Don't make it mandatory, or especially with people who say, I just don't want to be there. That's okay. Appreciate that if teachers are ambivalent or complacent, their participation or their teaching of this is likely not to be all that beneficial. To remember, this isn't just about techniques, it's about enthusiasm and engagement and inspiration. So you want people teaching and bringing this into schools who are enthusiastic, who embody a quality of mindfulness and care and kindfulness. So again, teach those teachers who are interested in, or who already have a practice and an interest in mindfulness. Generally speaking, go slowly in developing programs, inviting people to get involved, introducing this into schools or educational systems. Don't be in a rush. Proceed mindfully and thoughtfully and bring people along. The evidence suggests that mindfulness has an important part to play in helping teachers find a greater sense of well-being in their stressful work as educators. We also find that if students not only practice in the classroom, but also practice at home, and many students will take this home and teach their parents mindfulness. We've seen that in many, many cases. The more students practice on the sports field or at home and in other settings in their life, the more they're likely to report a greater sense of well-being and benefit from it. And there's clearly also a correlation between if the school has a positive, safe, upbeat culture, a place where people feel a sense of general well-being and peace of mind, then it's more likely that that will be reflected in the mental health of students. Some other guidelines: make the practice of meditation fun and interesting, with a sense of exploration and discovery and wonder at being alive for the students, especially for the younger children. Offer plenty of choices. What kind of meditation would you like to do today? And just see, or ask one of the kids, what's your favorite? Let's do that today. Don't impose the practice. Never impose the practice on a child as a punishment. We have seen this again and again. Oftentimes children and adolescents in particular will go, oh yeah, they did mindfulness to me because I was acting out or I wasn't behaving. And
it's a great way to turn students off to mindfulness, is just to say, you need you're so bad, you really need mindfulness.
That's a terrible thing to do to a child, and that will just alienate themselves from the tremendous benefits. Yeah. And in that spirit, never use like bells that you might use to ring to bring people to awareness, or any other kind of prompts that you associate with mindfulness practice. Never use that to impose silence on children or students or to shut them up. You know, you want this to be something they're delighted to hear, rather than feel like, you know, whoever's in power in the classroom is just imposing that power upon them using these artifacts. It's also really helpful to use somatic anchors. We'll oftentimes this is a practice from Thich Nhat Hanh. As you breathe in, it's like breathing in, I calm my body and mind. Breathing out, I smile. Or breathing in, raising the hands up here. Breathing out, now. Or touching the heart with one hand, pardon this typo there, and reaching out to just see what's going on in the environment around you, or touching your heart to stay in touch with your own experience while you're reaching out to someone who you're in a mindful dialogue with. So you're listening to yourself and you're also connecting with and listening to somebody else. Somatic anchors of moving meditations and walking meditations, or eating, being mindful of natural flow of breathing in and breathing out. And maybe within that breathing to then listen deeper and see if you can sense or feel the beat and the pulse of your heart. Mindful dialogue, as I described, with one hand at your heart and one hand reaching out. And also to keep in mind, especially with populations of young people and adults where there may be a history of trauma, you really need to create a sense of safety for these practices. You don't want to make people close their eyes. You don't want to make people bring their awareness into their bodies which may be a place of great anxiety for them. You want to invite and support and create a sense of safety. You want to give students as much choice and agency in mindfulness practice as you can. Explore mindful movement in a dynamic way rather than sitting still. Only mindfully observing, noticing, what do you see in the space around you, mindfully listening to music, sounds in the environment, mindfully engaging in dialogue and reflection with other students. These are really helpful guidelines if you want to have this land and be integrated into the students' lives or adults' lives that you're teaching. So over the years, we've had the privilege, over the last 50 years, to introduce mindfulness into hundreds of organizations. This is a partial list. And in recent years, like I say, back when we started bringing mindfulness into medicine, into higher education, into education, into nursing, into sports, into the government, we knew nobody else doing this work. And now, as of this particular study, 2018, 52% of different companies were teaching some kind of mindfulness practice. And that had increased from 36% from 2017. So there's a huge upwelling, maybe not going as deep as we had the privilege to go, but at least some presence of these teachings. One corporate program that we did was the Mindfulness and Meditation Laboratory for Google, which at the time was the largest online program that Google had ever done, linking 24 locations around the globe. It's a really great program building on their Search Inside Yourself program that was really successful, and they wanted to integrate it. And one of the things that we do with that, we would go in on weekends and offer like a day of mindfulness that people could bring a spouse or a significant other. One Indian gentleman brought his mama from India, and she was so thrilled that her engineer son was learning mindfulness. And here they are on their campus, these beautiful Google campuses, doing walking meditation and sitting and meditating out in the beauty of the nature of the setting that they were in.
And many had remarked to us that they never saw how beautiful their campus was. They never noticed that waterfall or that beautiful rock. It was like their eyes had been opened through these practices of mindful awareness, presence.
So we'd like to just give you a glimpse of how mindfulness education is showing up out in the larger world. The Garrison Institute's doing many programs related to mindfulness. Here they have the Cultivating Awareness and Resilience in Education program. The Mind and Life Institute has been a fantastic organization running for about 35 years now, bringing together contemplative inner scientists with people doing laboratory research and work in medical centers, and building a scientific understanding of the nature and the potentials of the mind. And have really promoted this work in a very scientific and widespread level. Just tremendous respect for them, promoting human flourishing through integrating contemplative science to promote greater understanding and wisdom and to reduce suffering. There's the Science of Compassion conferences that the Care Institute at Stanford University have brought forth, the Center for Compassion and Altruism Research and Education. They have a great YouTube channel with many brilliant talks exploring this territory. They had a Compassion and Technology conference a number of years ago. Really brilliant work. Mind and Life had the Academy for Contemplative and Ethical Leadership, where they made the declaration, we believe a new field of inquiry, practice, study, and research is needed that can advance our understanding of how contemplation and mindfulness might play a critical role in leadership. Brilliant program that we were honored to participate in. There's the International Symposium for Contemplative Studies, which has now been inspiring many different universities to start contemplative studies programs of their own. Again, a wealth of material online and on YouTube from those conferences. There's the Wisdom 2.0 organization, which has done a tremendous job of bringing mindfulness and contemplative science into organizational work on a global scale. And again, tremendous amount of work online. For the physician who asked the previous question, there's a consortium of academic health centers for integrative medicine, over 70 really highly esteemed medical schools, health centers coming together, all of them integrating mindfulness into their curriculums. A friend of ours, Rhonda McGee, started the first mindfulness and law program at Berkeley about probably 15 years ago. And there's over 50 other law schools now around the United States. I don't know how many around the world, with very robust appreciation for and education in mindfulness for lawyers. And then there's Otto Scharmer's brilliant work. We introduced some of that around that presencing model of presencing and absencing. Otto's been offering these huge online programs for hundreds of thousands of students.
Through MIT.
Yeah. These online MOOCs have been free, hundreds of thousands of participants from almost 200 countries around the world, self-organizing hubs of students in different places. I don't know if there's been a Bhutanese hub for this, but there could be one for future programs. Gather your friends and join the party on this. Really good work that deeply integrates mindfulness as a core practice for organizational and community wisdom and development. As we're reaching the conclusion here and about to go into more questions, would like to just invite all of us to read this piece together, kind of like a dedication and an affirmation coming from Einstein of the importance of this kind of deep wakefulness to who we are and our interconnectedness and interrelationship with all things and all beings. And it reads,
You can read it out loud wherever you are. A human being is a part of the whole, called by us universe, a part limited in time and space. We experience ourselves, our thoughts and feelings, as something separate from the rest, a kind of optical delusion of consciousness. This delusion is a kind of prison for us, restricting us to our personal desires and to affection for a few persons nearest to us. Our task must be to free ourselves from this prison by widening our circle of compassion to embrace all living creatures and the whole of nature in all of its beauty. Mindfulness can help us to increase this awareness as well.
So here's some books that we've written that have been parts of mindfulness programs in many, many different places around the world. And certainly reach out to us through wisdomatwork.com. We send out a daily inspirational email, and there's a lot of resources posted there. And we welcome your comments or reflections, your further questions. I'll put in the Q&A here if I can get to it. I guess I can't. Maybe I can. Yeah, I'll just paste in here. I guess we'll just send it as a follow-up.
Yeah.
Yeah. We can also send it out during the recording. After the record, we will send a link, all the links to everyone.
Yeah, so watch for the email from Domala and check out the links. And also, if you'd like to receive our inspirational email, send us your email. We'll add you to our list. So we're happy to take some questions here. And Kezang or Domala, if you'd like to just bring the questions forward, we'll respond to those.
Yeah, first I want to thank you both, and I'm very grateful for what you just shared with all of us. I trust everyone is experiencing similar, like we just had a quick glimpse of a mindful encyclopedia today. And it's so good to know there's so many mindful practices going on Earth at different countries, different level. And it's such rare opportunity through two of your life. You know, you both started mindful practice in your teenager age, and over 50 years accumulation to be one capsule unfolds this much. It's like a time space, you know, unfolding for us. And I don't know the age group in our audience, but I think it really expanded our consciousness awareness to connect with past and future and the possibilities for everyone in their heart, the seeds they want to germinate and the wonderful things they want to do for their children and their community. So I encourage and invite everyone to miss this opportunity to ask questions to Dr. Joe and Michelle, and just you can either raise your hand and we can unmute you, or you can leave question in the box, Q&A box. Gesang, you want to read? There's a couple more from Bhutan coming, I think.
There are two more. So the first one is there predetermined curriculum and syllabus of mindfulness in your school or country? Yeah.
Yeah, there are many different ways to approach it. You know, the Emory program has a beautiful curriculum laid out.
And they have a lot that's offered freely on their website of what their curriculums are. It's a great source of resources.
There's many people with many different kinds of mindfulness programs, and they're each going to be colored by and influenced by the breadth and depth of experience and perspective that the originator or the creator of those programs has brought to it. So some programs are very narrow, some are very broad. There's programs that are called mindfulness that really honestly aren't mindfulness.
They're more like relaxation, having the kids put their heads on their desk and take a nap, which has some benefit for sure, but it doesn't produce the quality of wakefulness. So the word unfortunately has been has lost a lot of its meaning because it's been used in so many different ways. It's time to refresh.
I have a question.
Yes.
Sorry for it. What kind of training one educator should go through or person should go through to be qualified to teach mindfulness, teaching to elementary, like let's say K to 12 first, and then or adults? I know you both had so many years of training, and not everyone, even myself, had over 10 years of training. I'm not sure if I can go into a classroom to teach mindful class in the classroom for children, but at home, I'm qualified to teach my daughter with a daily practice. So I think to be involved in the early question, systematic approach, and maybe you can share some experience. You've met so many teachers, trained so many teachers. Yeah. So give us a little bit hope. Hopefully the answer is not 10 years more. We don't have 10 years.
It doesn't have to be 10 years, but it is important that the teachers have some kind of training of how to teach. Just as they might need that for teaching any other skill set or subject. It does require, and even more important, it requires that the teacher is practicing themselves so that they can really answer the questions that the students may have from their own experience. It's not enough many people think, well, maybe we just have an online syllabus and it doesn't matter whether the teacher is practicing or not. But I think both of us really feel that it's really important for the teacher to have some knowledge and experience themselves and embody those qualities in how they are with their students. It's really, really essential.
Yeah, I'd say some kind of a rhythm of, there's the 8-week or 10-week mindfulness, 2 hours a week kind of program with a day-long retreat. kind of model to just get the basics of mindfulness kind of integrated for yourself. So that's a foundation. Then to practice for a while, to have study buddies who you reflect with and mentors who work with you to answer questions. So I'd say, an initial training, a weekend or 10 days or a couple of weekends with a week of practice in between to get a foundation, and then a month or 2 or 3 or 6 of practice with some interaction in person or online with study buddies and with a mentor. With
other teachers in the school would be great.
Yeah, and then, ideally to be a teacher, it's great if you can have your peers and a teacher watch you teaching mindfulness and give you some feedback on that, to just refine your technique with that. So, there's many different online programs. Some are better than others. If anybody's interested in the program for your schools or your universities or your organizations, you can certainly contact us and we'll explore kind of a format that could work with your culture and your needs and your budget. But yeah, you want the people that are going to be teaching it to have a deep understanding themselves. And that's going to require some practice and integration. It's like a music teacher. You want the music teacher to be able to play beautiful music and inspire the kids. So I'd say it's similar to that in terms of the investment and the cultivation. Great questions, Omar.
Thank you. Kasan, do you want to go through the rest of the questions? Because most of them are asked by friends from Bhutan. Yeah,
okay. So next is from a teacher, I think. So the common practice of mindfulness in the classroom is usually a short breathing practice prior to the session, that is the teaching. What is your opinion on this?
It's a good start. I think that can be really helpful just to clear the mind and calm, and doing a breathing practice before at the beginning. That it's good. There's more to it, but that's a good foundation for sure.
And what I'd build on that would be to, okay, let's all get present here, breathe or do some moving together in some kind of mindful way. Drink a few sips of water mindfully, just something that gets everybody in the room there. Like at Google, when we were working at Google, the practice got so popular that every meeting at Google for many years began with some kind of mindfulness practice to help everybody get present. But in the classroom, what you want to be able to do is then throughout the lesson, just have the students pause and reflect. So what do you think about what we just said? Or just get people involved in reflective loops, or what's something that was really meaningful for you in the last hour? Turn to 2 other students and share that. What questions came up for you? What part did you understand and what part did you not understand? So you're engaging the students in checking in with themselves, knowing what's going on for them, and expressing that to other students in small groups of students. And not always talking with the same students, talking with different students, throughout a week or over the course of a month. So the mindfulness in the classroom is not just an initial practice, but many, many reflective loops. And let's just pause for a moment and breathe, listen in, see if we have any questions. Maybe tell me one thing that you understood that is interesting to you, or something like that. So pause. What did you just learn? Reflect that back.
And one really fun exercise, mindfulness practice that you could do, especially with younger children at the beginning of the class, if the teacher has a beautiful sounding, like a meditation bell, a bowl bell. Joel's getting one here. And you ask the students, okay, I'm going to invite this bell to ring, and Listen, and when you can't hear the sound anymore, raise your hand. So all the children are really paying attention. For that. And then hands go up one at a time. But it's a short way of just, different than only the being attentive to your breath, but it's a listening meditation, which can really help carrying that over into the class, into the following lesson, to listen more closely, more attentively.
And it's good, I think, as a teacher to have like a number of skills, you know, like the bell ringing, raise your hand, mindfulness of breathing, breathing in and breathing out, synchronized with some words or phrases, calming, smiling, here, now, you know, to have a number of different practices so you're not just doing the same one. You can change it up, or just pick a student and say, which practice should we do today, Keizang? You know, and it's just kind of, oh, let's do this one, you know, so there's some engagement. Yeah.
Yeah, we have a few more questions. Okay, so I think we can.
There are a few more, so let's.
Yeah, please. We're here as long as you want to answer them.
I hope our teachers are taking note of your advice. So the next one, I think, comes from a principle. What strategy would best suit to promote self-introspection in teenagers and schools?
I think creating an environment of safety and of trust with the facilitator is really important. Teaching mindfulness and mindful dialogue. In many organizations or even schools that we come into, we don't start off with moving or breathing. We'll start with just finding a question that's kind of juicy and meaningful for people in that population, and having people engage in mindful dialogue where they're listening to themselves and being aware of their own thoughts and feelings while they're speaking, while they're listening to others, and maybe pausing frequently in the dialogue, you know, maybe pausing with a bell, back to themselves for a moment. How are you touched by what you've heard? And just kind of, you know, teaching mindful dialogue around meaningful topics or questions. It is a really, really good way, especially I think with adolescents and adults, to begin to anchor mindfulness. Yeah.
Another really important one that we found very effective with adolescents is to invite a reflection on what they're grateful for, what they're most grateful for. Yeah, mindfulness of gratitude. What am I grateful for in my life right now? And then it can be something small. It doesn't have to be something really big, but usually as they start, they begin to realize how much more there is. And that produces a great sense of well-being and enhanced presence, actually, when they start to reflect on all the gifts and blessings in their life, which we don't often talk about or share. But
okay, thank you. Thank you. Let's take 3 more questions quickly. So next one is from Next Gustin. Thank you so much for doing the work you do. Glad to listen to your insights and your experiences. Given all these developments, where do you see the world going? How do you relate this to the current challenges?
We really need to do and this practice, because the world is heading for trouble right now as we see it, because people are not cultivating this kind of awareness. So I think the more people can encourage and engage themselves, we can help people have skills to meet these challenges, because things are really difficult and look like they are continuing to pull that in.
You know, as I look at the world, I'm sure many people have this experience. You read the news or you see what's going on, and it's like, how can people be doing this? You know, it's like, how can we do this to each other, to the world? What are they thinking? And, you know, to appreciate, I think, you know, coming from the culture that you're coming from, Dolmala and Keizang, you know, there's a deep understanding of the kind of ignorance that's at play in beings who are not fully awakened, and the kind of harm that comes from that deep ignorance. So I think as we engage in these kinds of practices, our wisdom eyes and our true heart can begin to open, and we make wiser decisions, and we become less of a troublemaker, and we're better able to help. So I think regardless of how things are going to unfold in the world, and I sense that things will be very difficult in many places, likely for a long time, these are the kinds of skills that people will need to be a force for good, to be an embodiment of the Bodhisattva spirit and of kindfulness and helpfulness.
No matter what is.
And have the courage, like the courageous wisdom and compassion of the Bodhisattva spirit to be able to show up even in difficult circumstances and be a peaceful, trustworthy, helpful, wise source of guidance and protection and helpfulness. So, in many ways, like this is the education for the Shambhala warriors in the Kala Chakra tradition that you grew up in.
Yeah.
So this is the kind of education for everybody, be they scientists or be they Christians or be they educators. This is like universal education that can help us to be a source of helpfulness in the communities that we have influence in.
Also, I can add on top of what you say now to answer this question. Our conference in Bhutan this year, the theme, the topic is transformative education in post-pandemic time. Our subtitle is From Self-Healing to Social Transformation. Each of us is part of this universe. As we read the dedication just now, Einstein said. So if we want to see a better place, we need to be a better person first for our children. We cannot expect everyone else to change that we're not changing. As educators, we're change makers and we're change leaders. And as parents, I think the best starting point at this critical time is we become the change we want to see to be changed first. And this is the golden time to do it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. We're all together doing this now with today, this beautiful mindfulness talk. And I think this is planting seeds for it to change. It does take courage. It does take courage, but I think we can do it. I know we have two more questions.
We can do it together.
Yes.
Okay, so the next one is, how are parents involved in mindfulness programs?
Very important.
Very important.
Yeah.
In many of the organizational programs we've done, like for Google or Hewlett Packard or Intel or different companies that we work with, oftentimes get so much benefit of this work for their organization and their business that they then create opportunities for their families to come and do programs with us, or they send us into the local schools or into the local medical centers. So I think there's different ways that this can work. If you can offer mindfulness education for your students and teachers, I think it'd be fantastic to offer programs for the parents.
It's a family system to really support it again and be an example. It's really important.
Yeah. And that way the parents can encourage the children at home and they can do mindful eating and whatever. I grew up in a family where my grandfather had a really strong practice, and I grew up in the field of his kind of dedication and devotion to cultivating wholesome and positive qualities of mind. And that really imprinted me as a child. So whatever we can do to open our children's eyes to a sense of wonder and kindness and choicefulness and responsibility and compassion, that's mindfulness in action. And if you can work with parents so that they can, raise their children in mindful ways, it's fantastic. John Kabat-Zinn has a book on mindful parenting. Dan Siegel has written beautiful work on raising mindful children and mindful adolescents. There's so much that's available. And certainly if there's any ways that we can help, you know, to lend support, reach out to us and we can, you know, talk or email and just figure out a way to help you move along with this.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you very much. Our last and the important question actually comes from Reha Nahar from Philippines. Some people say mindful practice slows down their movements or speed of work. They worry that they might not finish their tasks in a given time. May I have your response to this apprehension of these people?
Wow, that's a very practical question. I'd say in the beginning, it is helpful to slow down because oftentimes when we're very speedy and we're rushing around, we're not paying attention. So just in the beginning, as a foundation, to slow down, interrupt that mechanical, mindless habit energy that we have, it's really, it is helpful. But even if it does slow down, the quality of your work will be so much better that you'll save time having to do rework and having to correct mistakes because you weren't paying close attention in that speediness. But when this becomes more natural for you to be paying attention, you can be mindful when you're moving fast. It's not limited to going slow. You can be mindful when you're jogging as well as walking slowly, or when you're on your bicycle, or the speed doesn't have to be limited to slowness, although in the beginning, as beginning learners, it is really a good idea to slow the old habits down a bit. But yeah, you don't have to only be slow to be mindful.
You know, one practice we'll oftentimes teach is if you find yourself rushing, mindfully rush faster. And kind of, you
talk faster.
Blend, talk faster, move faster, kind of blend with the momentum and then slow it down in a mindful way and then speed it up again and slow it down until you find the right spot, the right level of activity or engagement or right set of RPMs for a task. So having kind of a slider for the intensity that you bring to what you're doing and learning to distinguish when you're like in your zone, in that sweet spot, is a really nice way to practice it. We do that all the time with people in business settings.
Plus, it makes you laugh a little bit, like as kids.
It's playful.
Pause, breathe, and smile when you see yourself.
Yeah,
along.
Great question from the Philippines. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah. We're a bit of over our original time, and thank you for the ones who are staying on. I know everyone want to engage more. This is such an exciting, important subject, but we recorded the whole session and we will send the recording link and other books people are interested in a website and all together to all the participants. And there were ones emailed and said, will you record because they cannot get on. I think everyone will receive the email within a day or two. And deep gratitude again to Dr. Joe and Michelle and Gesang and all the participants. And I think at least we can start from today with PBS, pause, breathe, and smile. And that's the simple 3 words we can start to make our life more healthy and happier and mindful. And thank you again, everyone.